Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's the big voice guy. That means I'm with one of my favorites. I enjoy this time every week. If nothing else, I'll probably leave a little bit better than I came because he plays it pretty close to the vest. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm ODB, the guy that everybody likes. Not me, you. How's it going, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. We made it through June. Pretty busy month.
You know what? So, full disclosure here, you've done this a while. I obviously have kiddos that do it. When the schedule originally comes out, you start, you're on your regular summer tour, and you think June kind of goes into neutral a little bit because it's just high school. It was almost worse.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, where are all the games and where's the travel?
Well, yeah. People talk about like how many
crazy
games kids play in AAU. It's like in June they're doing open gyms, they're doing league, they're doing 1 to 2 events every weekend. Like there's a lot more basketball in June than there is in July. Yeah.
It's not even close.
I said we're going to one practice a week for this month just to keep the guys fresh and not overwork them.
Yeah, today alone, 2 practices that will cover from 3:30 to 7:30, and they've already been at school. And I'm thinking, bring on July. Right? Well, now, my daughter's obviously in the thick of it, coming off a good stretch run for Miller North girls this summer who have gotten young in a hurry. But with Caleb still trying to get healthy, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
Watching the amount of detail and schedule building and game scheduling. They just came back from Kansas City playing in a high school deal. They played probably 7 games in 3 days. Took Monday night off of Summer League, obviously, just because of the rigor and wear and tear. There was a lot going on in the month of June.
Yeah.
And there was only probably one real outside of the high school setting tournament. Right? Yeah. That's right? Just the one tournament? The second week in June? Or was it the third week?
Well, so I think the Bryan Shootout is the only one that's real bracket style. Almost everything else are just kind of round robin showcase type games.
Good distinction because that's true.
Yeah, so and they got a little all kinds of different. Like I went out to the Wahoo Newman team camp last week and last Friday, and what they did there is they had I think 8 teams and they just played 22-minute games. And they just basically played almost everybody. So you play your shorter games, but more teams you play. So you get to look at different teams.
So has this always been a thing? Maybe I'm just not paying attention. Have you noticed how basketball in the summer has gone the way of football quite a bit with either the jamborees, the team camps, quote unquote, where you bring in multiple teams or other competitors to kind of operate under the guidelines of the camp setting, but you're getting games in.
Yeah, and that's kind of like they're not tournaments, they're not necessarily camps. You got to call it something.
Calling them that.
Yeah,
right?
But team camp is kind of the general term for a lot of what goes on this month. And yeah, it's you go through your practice, you go through your workouts, and then you go play a bunch of teams to kind of see where your guys are at. And so I know some. It's kind of interesting. Some teams have basically had the same core. I think Westside basically had the same 10, 11 guys, depending on health for those guys the whole way through, versus Papio South or Prep, who's been rotating different. Every time I see them play, they've got a different group of guys out there. So it's kind of been interesting to see just the
Miller
various.
North, similar.
Yeah, they've had.
You'll look over during a summer league game and you'll see 13 guys on the bench.
They have 15 guys on their bench.
Yeah.
South, same thing. They have 15 guys on their bench at least one or 2 weeks. So, and that's I think that's part of how you kind of deal with the amount of games where you don't necessarily play your starters 30 minutes in every single game. Maybe get some of those younger guys a chance to play. And I know South, like there are games where like Ricky Lofton didn't even start, barely played. And they are kind of rotating different guys in there. And
I try not to jump to conclusions. It's funny you bring them up. I watched Westside pretty much hammer them, and I think going into that one, I felt like because South has my attention, right? They played a lot of young guys last year, kind of rolled the dice, and it wasn't competitive from the jump. And I had to catch myself. Okay, it's summer, right? Like, let's not make any sweeping judgments or generalizations. But then, I obviously, like I do just from a coaching standpoint, I'm like, okay, what do I think is portable? What do I think was just limited to being here in summer ball? And I've changed my mind a couple of times on a couple of teams trying to I don't know if you did this. I did. I changed my mind a couple of times on a couple of teams forecasting the upcoming season. Yeah,
and I got like 21 teams here that I'm trying to sort through. I think you feel kind of good about the top group of teams. The order within that top group is another story, but then you got a big group, I think, that, all right, these guys could jump up, or these guys could kind of hold on with different guys. Like, there's a lot to sort through.
I'm checking real quick. Okay. Let me go to my notes. How many teams do you have in, like, what you would call your feel good, like, okay, I think they're going to be pretty good?
I think we probably see. I could go down.
Don't look, but I have this many. Not to influence you, because I wanted to know what your number was.
I'm trying to figure out where the feel good versus have a chance, kind of where the break point is.
I was pretty clear.
There are about 15 teams, I think, that I liked what I saw from this year and have a chance to be above 500 and kind of be in the mix. I think about. I think I feel good about the top 4, 5, 6. And then after that is when you start seeing teams that can jump up.
Did you feel like you were compromising at 5 and 6, or do you feel good at 6? Because you first said 4.
Yeah. And
you said, I feel good about 4, 5, 6. And maybe you're just going back through your notes, but because I don't want to talk you into it, because it's going to be a discussion here in a second.
Well, and so getting down here, like 6, the first team I wrote down for 6 is Lincoln Southwest. And that's a team that we didn't get to see at full strength. We still have not seen Ryland Smith yet. And Ben Hunziker only played for a couple of weeks. So I like what they have, but I don't know exactly what they are. So they have them 6 there. It could be.
Full disclosure, Lincoln Southwest is in my 6.
Yeah. So, and I just watched them play against Pius down to the wire. And obviously Pius had their guys, and Ryland wasn't playing for Southwest. Pius won. And it's a summer game that you're playing like even rotations, all that kind of stuff. But I think I like what both those teams have and what they've been able to build.
Pius is in the 6.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me ask you one, and this one's interesting. Is Central in that 6?
Central, I have 7.
Very interesting, aren't they?
So
I struggled because I was thinking along the lines of not a super 6, but I wanted to keep it at 6.
Yeah.
I was this close to swapping Southwest out and putting Central in. I don't know. And he's already proven, by he I mean Coach Behrens, depth isn't huge.
Yeah.
He's played with 6 or 7 before.
Didn't play many off the bench last year.
They're really good at the top.
Yeah.
Obviously led by Jaden Dawson, right? I'm curious about like 5, 6, 7-ish.
Yep. And that's kind of the question is, you put together a list of like 5 guys that you think will be the best players in the state. Jaden's probably on that list.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly in the Metro. So
good distinction.
Because
I was very, very candid in saying slam dunk top 5, but you get outside the Metro.
You got Isaac Trout is right up there, right. But you're looking at guys like I think Jason Green, probably the best player in the Metro, just based on who he is, what he's done.
I think Dawson's in that discussion.
Exactly. I think Daniel Brocale, numbers-wise, is going to have a huge year.
And you know what? I don't know how Coach Heiser will let him play. He's a volume. He can be a volume guy. What kind of help will he get? Because his offensive game is really good.
Yeah. And I could easily see him being a 20 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists type of guy this year.
If he gets a little help,
yeah,
20 may be low.
That's true.
Because you have to figure, if he's good from the foul line, and I remember watching him against Westside, he wasn't very good, but they weren't good from the foul line as a team, and that game got away from them in a hurry. But he was the one guy that weathered the storm, both physically and emotionally, because they tried to dog him the whole game, just running physical bodies at him and touching, and he answered the dinner bell.
Yeah, and competition is summer, whatever, but I don't even remember who the opponent was. But in that Wahoo camp, Papio South was out there, and in the second half, so it's an 11-minute half, he scored 18 of their 24 points.
Yeah. Like I said, he gets it going in a
free
hurry.
throws, threes, posts. He can do a lot. So I think Jaden's very firmly in that mix of guys that are going to put up the biggest numbers in the Metro, and just based off that alone, you have to keep them in there. PJ Davis is a solid number 2. Then after that, you've got
an enigma. Yeah. I actually like the start that he got off to in the summer.
Yeah,
in May, I thought he shot it well. I thought he did a better job of getting downhill. He didn't just stand in the corner and shoot because I think he's better than he gives himself credit for.
He's been more well-rounded, I think. And that was kind of the knock on PJ is, you got the big frame here, you got the long arms, the ability to knock down shots, but wasn't a whole lot of wiggle off the bounce, wasn't really creating a lot himself. And like you said, he could get downhill, but it wasn't necessarily something that's consistent. I think he's handling it more. He's getting downhill more. He's trying to do more.
He carved Westside up.
Yeah.
He really carved Westside up, and he did it by getting to the 10.
Yeah.
He was good on the glass. I mean, he's a handful. He's got the long arms, tremendous length.
Yeah.
Not always real bouncy, but he's got good body control, so he understands angles around the rim, and he can shoot it.
Yeah, and this is probably a guy that I'll touch on later, but I think DeAndre Brody is a guy that'll be big for them.
He's going to be interesting now that he assumes the role. He's a little smaller guard. He's slight, played with and against him throughout his whole youth career. He's going to be interesting to watch.
So he'll probably be starting that backcourt next to Dawson. And then you've got Raheem Briggs, who moved away and then came back. Bigger guy, kind of a 4-5 there. You've got Zion Bang-Hendon, who transferred over from Omaha South.
South lost one, got one.
Yeah.
With DeAndre Perkins.
Yeah. And they got one from Westside, too, that's been playing with them. And then Kia Palger, I think is his name. So they've got some bodies in there to have a little bit more size than they did last year. Quentin Butts was their backup big last year, and he's still there. So they've got a bigger front court. Obviously, they've got those 2 studs on the wing. It'll come down to how consistent can those other guys be, and that's the question we don't know yet. But they've got the top end talent to still firmly be in the mix for this top 10.
Well, let me ask you something while we're staying there with Broke Hill before we get too far removed at the Wahoo camp. And you had seen Glock before with the 15s. When you look at his body type and then you look at a guy like Broke Hill, is that what allows you to be patient, waiting on younger guys, knowing at some point physics kicks in, right? Like, you look at Broke Hill's frame as a senior, and you look at a guy like Marcus Glock, who is highly skilled, still just going to be a sophomore. There's a distinct difference in body types.
Oh, yeah. And even when I was watching Daniel when he was 15, he was back then he was playing like the 4-5 for like that factory team. Like, he had a bigger frame even then. So Marcus has a long way to go physically, but he's skill set wise. And I think that year of playing varsity ball kind of will help him understand that, and I think this will be a big year. Hopefully, he can put some weight on. It's tough, I think, for him, just based on his body type and kind of what's going on there. But that is going to be a key for him as he goes throughout his high school career, because he's got the skills for sure. He's got the length. Just got to add a little bit of strength to that.
So we're juggling, but we're pretty much in agreement with those back 3, Central, Southwest, and Pius.
Yep.
Next in that discussion would probably be Prep or Millard North.
I've got Prep at 4.
Okay.
And just watch these guys play, actually, at the
Which
Prep
lineup?
Camp. That's the thing. Luke Jungers was there. Martell Evans was there.
That's a different team.
Casey O'Malley didn't play in that game, really, for some reason. But so wasn't full strength. But I think Millard North, they've been one of the teams that you coming in, yeah, they've got some talent. How good will they be? I've been really impressed with what I've seen from them all month. And I think, heck, they're one of the few teams that actually beat Westside way back at the start of the summer.
Yeah, it was. I remember walking into that game. They won at the buzzer.
Yep.
When we walked in, because we were coming from locker room camp, and Caleb was changing in the locker room. That was back when he was playing.
Yeah.
And that was, you know what I liked about them? I don't know how their backcourt's going to hold up. Right, that's obviously going to be the key. You lost 2 of your primary ball handlers. Will Jason Green play the point forward type? Will you get good contributions from like Isaiah McMorris and some of the younger guards as ball handlers this year with their first indoctrination into the Metro? It could be slow going at first, but if the backcourt catches up with the front court over time, they could be one of the teams that has more depth, significantly more depth than I think the casual observer would probably guess.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why they're playing 15 is they're giving some of those guys a chance to play some minutes with different guys that are going to be locked into the top 8 or so. You're trying to figure out 9, 10, 11 who's going to be able to help us outside of that main group.
A lot different problem than a year ago, right? Where they were playing 6.5, and you're like, ooh, is this going to last?
And again, that's another topic we'll get to, but I think those seniors they had last year, they averaged a combined like 3 points a game with Nick Dolezal and David Harmon. I think those guys are ready to be consistent impact players for them this year, playing off a guy like Jason. So yeah, it is. I think the kind of ceiling is going to depend on how quickly those sophomores are ready to play and kind of what they can get out of Jackson Page in the mix as well. But I like what I've seen from those guys, and they're not going to be the best players on that team, but I think all 3, Neil Monster especially, I've been really impressed with him. Obviously shooting the ball, moving the ball. He's looking to put the ball on the deck a little bit more than he has previously. I think he had a really good month. And then Eli Gates, when he got healthy, was able to play a little bit. Isaiah McMorris. I think between the 2 of them, you're going to get enough there.
Ball handling is going to be, if a team's played them 94 feet, and I don't know how much you'll want to speed them up. You don't want any leaky runouts, and you certainly don't want to lose a guy like Moss or shooting the ball. But I think ball handling and decision-making will be their key.
And that's going to be tough. I think they're going to look to push every chance they get, particularly when Jason Rebound clears the board. He's going to put that thing on the deck and go. So limit some of that, the young guys having to handle the ball in transition.
And he automatically gives you numbers.
Yeah, exactly. That grab and go element is so difficult for teams to deal with. Put so much pressure on you. So I think Creighton Prep with Martell Evans, Casey O'Malley in the backcourt. You've got Luke Jungers, and they've got some role players I saw this month that they should be able to kind of do their job around those guys as long as those guys can be pretty consistent.
Tougher to decide between 3 and 4, or tougher to decide between 1 and 2?
Probably 1 and 2.
Really?
So everybody's putting Bellevue West as number 1, I think, for the most part.
See, when I first said that a couple months ago, I thought I was going to be on an island. Maybe not now.
And I think that's just kind of respect for Doug Woodard, what he's built over there, and just kind of, they just churn out wins. Like, it doesn't really matter that Chucky Hepburn's gone. They still got some really good players coming back. They added more on the transfer market than any other school.
The transfer market.
So the question is kind of how it all meshes together. I still think some of those guys are absolutely ready. I think Josiah Dotzler is ready to kind of step into, we were talking about the best players in the Metro. I think he's ready. He's probably, looking at that underclassman, he's probably ready to, most among that group, to step into kind of that area. But outside him, I think they're still trying to figure out, all right, who can we count on from the role player perspective? Obviously, William Kyle defensively makes a huge difference. But guys like Evan Inselman, Jackson Stuvey, and then some of the transfers are trying to sort out between TK Barnett and Jaden Cassio-Jensen and John Mitchell. I'm still recovering, so he hasn't played yet, obviously, from the torn ACL. So they still got a lot to figure out, and I don't know that they know yet what they can rely on outside of Josiah, obviously, William, what he does. And I think Jaden Jackson, I was impressed with him this month and what I saw from him. I think he is ready to kind of step into that and be one of those core guys this season.
Yeah, he's extremely capable. I think, and obviously he's at an advantage or disadvantage with me because I'm around him all the time, right? So I kind of know his mindset. There's two things that'll be big for Jade. Number one, I think he's got to become more confident handling the basketball. And number two, every time he's out on the floor, he has to understand he belongs.
Yeah.
He's a quiet kid by nature. He's very reserved. And so sometimes I think I just want to look at him and say, let it go. Like, you have a lot of really good skills. And he kind of keeps it harnessed.
He's a better athlete than I realize. He's out here blocking shots, grabbing boards, finishing.
See, we get to see it all the time. He's a good rebounder. He blocks a ton of shots. And he has bounce.
Yeah.
He's got some pogo stick to his game. He's a guy that he's a quick leaper. And we're like, he's got long arms. Yeah. He's fantastic.
I didn't even really, because obviously he's known for his shooting. That's kind of what he did as a freshman and what you knew about him. But
I think he's capable of being a lockdown defender.
Yeah. And this month, I think they did put him in that position a little bit more to be kind of one of the lead guys. And there were a couple games there where Josiah didn't play, and he stepped up and was handling the ball and trying to be the go-to guy. So I think this month was good for him, and he'll be one of those guys that you definitely can count on this season next to Dotzler.
And your number two, we just kind of glossed over him a little.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a good basketball team who has changed the style of offense that they want to play from a year ago. They will look vastly different.
Yeah, I think for Westside, the key, whether they're 1, 2, where they fall, is going to be Chandler and Reggie, and are those guys ready to be the go-to options against really good teams? That was kind of where they weren't quite ready for that last year. We saw that once they got in district play and weren't able to kind of get the job done there. They've got some really good role pieces. Obviously, those sophomores, they've got a year under their belt now, I think.
They're going to be good.
Yeah, with Caleb, CJ, Kevin Stubblefield.
Maybe has made the most growth of the bunch.
And then, I mean, Tate's really solid. Hopefully, he'll be healthy this year. That'll make a big difference. You got Payson as a shooter, spreading the floor, and then Logan Wilson, one of the best shot blockers in the Metro. So they've got all the pieces to be a really good team if Reggie and Chandler are ready to make that leap and put themselves, one or both, in that conversation of the best in the Metro that we were talking about.
We disagree a little bit there, right? I'm with you on Logan. I actually think at some point this season, Logan Wilson will make the case of one of the better underrated players in the city. He's fantastic. There's almost nothing he can't do. He's gotten better off the bounce. He's got really good hops. He's become a pretty good shooter.
Yeah.
He's a great defender. He blocks shots, and he plays hard.
And he doesn't need to take. He'll take 1 to 2 shots a game and be fine with that. He'll do his job no matter what.
I think Logan is pretty fantastic. I think you know what I think Westside's key is? This is a little different. They need to understand that it doesn't have to be those two for them to be good. Because I think those two guys, and Chandler and Reggie, if they would embrace their other skill sets, it changes the dynamic of that team. Chandler should be an elite level defender. Reggie already is a really good defender. He's a good passer. He's a really good rebounder. Him playing without the ball and understanding that that's okay, it changes that team tremendously.
Well, and I think, I don't know that we necessarily disagree. It doesn't mean they have to go score 20 a game.
Okay.
It means they have to make better decisions, and when they need a bucket.
That is the key.
Exactly.
It's decision making.
Yeah, understand when, all right, I got to go get a bucket, and I'm going to finish it.
And when I'm going to trust.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they have, I mean, they probably in theory have 5 guys, 6 that could get you 10 a night.
Yeah. And we talked to Jim Simons early in the spring about just that leap that they had to make last year and kind of how tough that is going from 4th, 5th option to being kind of the best players on your team. And that's not easy. And especially on a team kind of with the expectations of that team based on what the talent that they had. So we'll see this year what they've learned from that experience and kind of how ready they are to make an all-around impact this season on a consistent, efficient level.
That's the guy. We ran out of time. Class B, don't think we forgot about you. We will do our preseason top 6 for Class B, and we'll recap River Cities, which should be highly, highly competitive. Did you like the field? I kind of like the field.
Yeah, got a lot of teams in there. It's good getting the Nebraska Supreme teams at least in for some showcase games. They were originally scheduled to be somewhere else, but that kind of fell through. So I'm glad they were able to add them. So we'll get to see OSA Supreme, Lincoln Supreme, the OSA national teams.
Get to see my main man coach doing the darn thing with the dry erase board, motivating kids, putting them in good positions. But yeah, Class B, I'll be curious because it is very close at the top. So don't miss it next week. It's Nebraska Preps Postgame. I'm ODB. That's Jacob Padilla.
A Hurrdat Media Production.